Hello, everybody. It's Steve, your friendly neighborhood lawn gnome. Welcome back to another video over here on That's Comical. And if you're watching and it happens to be a Wednesday, happy new comic book day. Cami and I are here this evening for the very special treat for all. Cami, I'm hoping you're doing well today.
I am always happy to talk about comics with you. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, I think so. So we're here to do our best of the previous year, which in case you didn't realize is 2024. It seems like it's been a while since we did our last one because the truth of the matter is we just didn't manage to get our bearings together for 2023. So unfortunately we skipped a year, but it's not a big deal. If you want to know what my top pick for 2023 was, just leave a comment in the box below and I'll be glad to share it with you because I wrote it down and I always do. So I'm looking forward to, if not talking to everybody in the That's Comical team, just at least talking to my number one here. It's always good to talk with the second in command. So Cami, I'm really looking forward to finding out what your top three comic books of 2024 were. I'm pretty sure you already know what mine are because I am constantly going berserk over these specific titles, but I'm still excited to talk about them as a whole.
Well, I have a prediction of what yours are going to be, but I'm not going to verbalize those. But I think mine might surprise you a little bit. So
I always get surprised. I think if I'm not mistaken, I really thought that you were going to also, back in our best of 2022, I really thought it was going to be the same one across the board, and you ended up picking Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Saturday Morning Adventures. I'm not going to forget that. But that's a wise choice. I'm not going to knock you for it. I mean,
you
as the
know,
Turtles fan,
it's been an ongoing series, so I must have been onto something because I just picked up issue number 21 just this past week. So
yeah, I found out it was a four-issue miniseries to see if people would actually enjoy it, and apparently the buzz definitely caught, and the fire kept burning. And you're absolutely right; it's an ongoing series with the same person who did the first round. And as far as I am concerned, it's a fan favorite amongst many, including yourself. And it's no surprise that it would be something that you wouldn't enjoy.
I think someday you might actually pick it up, maybe in a trade, but I think you would enjoy it too.
I've got to be honest with you. I actually do look at the first round on eBay because I did get the free comic book day and I read it and I enjoyed it, but I just didn't think it was something I was going to hold on to. And it's going to be so funny to say that based on some of the topics that I'm going to be throwing out tonight.
Well, I'm interested to get started. So shall we?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So let's just throw a couple of ground rules out there for everybody watching. So we're going to do our top three titles of the previous year, in this case 2024. We're going to go back and forth. We're going to chit chat about them, throw a couple of facts out there, but also we all have a different feeling as to what makes a book being released in a certain year. How does that work? So I have specific guidelines now in regards to mini and maxi series and ongoing series. So for me, when it comes to a mini or maxi series, if the larger portion of a mini or maxi was in 1 year, but not in its initial year of release, I would classify that as a book for the following year. So I'll give you guys a perfect example of what's right now in the running for me in 2025. There's a great Image comic book that's coming out right now, a 10-issue maxi called The Moon is Following Us by Daniel Warren Johnson over at Image Comics. It's going to be 10 issues in total, and we are now only up to number 5. So a very few bunch of those issues came out in 2024. So as far as I'm concerned, since the larger chunk of The Moon is Following Us is going to be released in 2025, I call that a 2025 release. Now that's just for mini and maxi series. What about ongoing? So it's funny, I just decided this right before 2025 rolled around. And that was, if an ongoing title starts, but its first story arc has not concluded at the end of the year, and it concludes in the next year, I call that a series for the following year. Case in point, a great series that started last year over at the DC All In Initiative is the brand new Justice League title, Justice League Unlimited. The first 2 issues came out in 2024. So the first story arc has not even concluded. So I would classify the end of the story arc, that means it's a 2025 release. Because if only 2 issues came out in 1 year, and yet the rest of the title comes out in the next year, especially for its first story arc, that's why I would classify that as a 2025 release as opposed to a 2024 release. No one needs to follow that guideline. It's just my own personal opinion of how I treat my ongoing series.
Okay, because I'm going to break that rule with one of my choices.
You're allowed to do whatever you want. You don't have to follow my lead.
Okay.
So I will just say that one of the few things that I'm sort of impressed with is the fact that there's not a single title in my top 3, not even in my top 5, that comes from Marvel and DC. And I was saying that 2024 was going to be a very interesting year for comic books by saying that I seriously believed that one of the big 2 was going to be number 3, and that Image Comics was going to probably be the number 1 company in the country. Based on sales, it's still Marvel, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around how that happens, because I would say there's only a total of maybe 5 titles of Marvel that I read that I actually find these days enjoyable, and everything else that Marvel is producing in my eyes is just a steaming pile of crap. I don't know what it is about these books that people are interested in. I find every other title that I'm not reading, that I dipped my hands into, not good, not well illustrated, not great writing. I don't know what it is about Marvel that people love so dearly to this very day. DC, on the other hand, clearly was in the same route, but they had a monster wake-up call, and now we have the DC All In Initiative, which includes the brand new Absolute Universe. And as someone who had no intention to read DC after the very quiet summer event, Absolute Power, I am blown away by how impressed I am with what DC has been doing. They actually got some great writers on some of these titles, and I'm having a blast with a lot of these titles. I think at this point in time, I'm reading 15 DC titles. I did not anticipate that, maybe more. But
I don't even know what my number is.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's more than 10. I can promise you that.
It's
but
a lot.
Image is the number 1 indie book company in the country, and it has been ever since it first showed up in 1992. And I love what they do, but knowing that it was all indies for me, that basically to me is what I've been saying. The future of comics is not necessarily with the big 2 anymore. You got to look to Image Comics, and then you got to go further down the proverbial rabbit hole and look for some of those other companies. You got to look at the Boom Studios. You got to look at the Dark Horse. You got to look at the IDW, Dynamite, so on and so forth. And the last one I just mentioned, Dynamite, because they are on fire right now. In 2024, they did something massive. They started a small snowball that's now turned into a massive boulder. Just getting all of these properties based on nostalgic television shows, cartoons from the 60s, 70s, 80s, and even the 90s. And the writers are just doing some of the most incredibly entertaining and fun pieces that I have read in the past year. And the one that shocked me the most, which is my number 3, is Space Ghost. Space Ghost by a writer that a lot of people knocked on because of what he did over with a Marvel title specifically. People were not liking what this guy was all about. They didn't like his politics. They didn't like his writing. And then out of nowhere, Space Ghost comes out, I believe, in May. And the funny thing was, I'm not going to say that the critics necessarily ate crow, but they were definitely skeptical, but at the same time, they were very curious because David Pepose was writing a Space Ghost comic. That's the only reason why they were interested. And now we're already 10 issues in, and my God, this title is phenomenal. It is so interesting because it's different. It's not campy, it's not a kid's comic, but even though it is mature and it's dramatic and it's action packed, it manages to capture that 1960s vibe in some way, shape, or form. I mean, I've been collecting the D variant covers. I'm not collecting the A covers on these because, I mean, this is issue number 1. Look at it. It looks like an old Hanna-Barbera drawing, and that's what drew me to those covers.
Talk about breaking rules, though. You always get alpha covers on number 1, so that says something.
Oh yeah, there's. I've actually been breaking a few of those rules only on the Dynamite side, just because of the things that they're doing with all of these titles. It's very, very difficult to say no to some of those covers. As a matter of fact, a little bit of a sad thing to say, I'm not even collecting the A covers for the Batman The Last Halloween right now. There's a series of covers in which all the characters are mugshots. I couldn't say no to those mugshots. I love them. And the best part is, at the end of each of those issues, you still get the A cover in the book. Yeah. So at least
I can really appreciate that when an artist does that, or when a publishing company kind of gives you the gambit of all the different covers. It's just something special, because even though you don't have a physical copy of the whole thing in your hand, you still kind of get a piece of it and you get to keep it, you know?
But another thing that I specifically want to say that's so interesting about me and this title, I never watched Space Ghost. I never even watched Space Ghost Coast to Coast. I knew who this character was. You know, there's so many Hanna-Barbera cartoons. As someone whose favorite cartoon of all time is the Jetsons, someone who praises the beauty of Hanna-Barbera's work, it is amazing to know how many cartoons they have in their lore, and how many of them some people don't even know and didn't ever watch an episode. But hey, I may have never watched it, but I know that there was a show called The Amazing Chan and the Chan Clan. So that's the point I'm trying to make. Hanna-Barbera is iconic. Yeah. Even if you never watch those shows, you know that they're out there and you know that they exist. And any chance that Hanna-Barbera is going to become a comic book, I'm excited. I mean, hey, in April, I know you're doing it too. We're both going to be buying the Wacky Races one shot.
I'm so stoked about that. Is probably hands down my favorite Hanna-Barbera cartoon. I absolutely love it. I could sit there and just watch it on repeat over and over and over again as a kid.
And the funny thing is, there have been a lot of companies out there that had a lot of these nostalgic properties, and they just didn't know what to do with them. I mean, look, the good news is over at IDW, they are surviving with the wonder that they're doing with Ninja Turtles, thanks to what happened with The Last Ronin back in 2020, and it's all just exploding over there. But there have been, over at Dynamite, some titles that they've done, particularly in the world of Disney, and they just haven't really grabbed me. There's just something about when they started with Declan Shalvey's Thundercats. That was the first big title that they did with those nostalgic characters. They just did something a little different. And now every single time, whether it's Space Ghost or the Powerpuff Girls or Silverhawks that just came out from Ed Bryson, they just know what they're doing now. They finally found a way to make it click, and they're finally realizing there is a way to write a great story with these well-known characters, and at the same time still manage to give them something familiar while giving them something new, them meaning the reader.
Well, and I think that's the beauty of Hanna-Barbera. You know, it was obviously well before our generation of cartoons, but we were seeing them on the late night programs, you know, or if you had no cable television like I didn't growing up, then you had that channel 13 or 14, and you were able to do Hanna-Barbera almost day, every day, all day. It was just, there was one Hanna-Barbera after another. And then of course the mainstream was the Jetsons and the Flintstones. So I think that's why they resonated so heavily with us. But even if you weren't a fan of the cartoon of Space Ghost, I mean, like you said, that series is very well written. It caused me to actually purchase a Funko Pop that I wasn't planning on purchasing. So, there's an addition to that. But yeah, that's an excellent choice. And I'm glad you did choose it, because I know that you were
No,
raving about it before it came out.
it's also because of the fact that it's a book that not that many people are talking about. If you go into the comic book community, there are a couple of people that are raving about it. And now they're even on their videos saying, why are there not many more people talking about this book? Because it is a great book. It really
What
is a
I'm
great
hoping
book.
to see in the comic community is people branching out a little bit more, because I think people tend to stay with what they know sometimes, and they don't give things an opportunity, and Hanna-Barbera is something that you would be taking a risk on at our age, or even just, the generation below us, because you're not familiar with it. You're not sure what it's going to offer you. I mean, even if you did watch Space Ghost Coast to Coast on Adult Swim, you're still not really sure what the comic is going to offer you. So I think as comic readers, we just kind of need to step out of our comfort zone sometimes and just say, hey, let me try this on for size. Even, switch publishing companies up, and just see what a different publishing company can offer you. I will say the most money I invested in 2024 was still in Marvel and DC, but they're not on my list today. And regardless of my enjoyment level of some of those titles, a lot of that was vested in this campaign. And you're seeing it right now with DC's All In. And before, you saw it with Marvel's Blood Hunt, where it was just a huge push on money. And I get it, if you're vested, you're vested, and you're going to go all in with all these different titles, and it's going to make sense. But it's not the best of both worlds. You're not getting the best images, you're not getting the best writing in some cases. It just seems like it's an initiative to be an initiative in some cases. But these indie titles, I mean, we've been talking about them for a few years here on this channel. There's some incredible titles, there's some incredible authors and illustrators behind these, some colorists, letterists. I mean, the list goes on, and we've just found some gems. And I implore more comic enthusiasts, especially, our viewers, take a risk this year. Let 2025 be the year that you pick up something that you might not otherwise have picked up. You might be surprised.
Yeah, and we now officially are going to dedicate an entire segment on this channel to these books, because if you're not reading these, you have no idea what's going on. And the most important thing is that more are coming. There's some really big ones. I mean, even over at some of the other companies, there's some very interesting things happening, particularly with older properties. I mean, I tried Flash Gordon from Mad Cave Studios, I believe, and it just didn't work with me. I mean, I know that Flash Gordon has a big fan base. I knew that the writer was great. Jeremy Adams is one of my personal favorite writers that's out there right now, and he's such a hot commodity over at DC. The things that he's doing with Green Lantern is incredibly good. But maybe it's just because of the fact that Flash Gordon is just something that I am not familiar with. I don't really know the characters. I don't really know the lore. But at the same time, I said, you know what? I got the free comic book day book to see if I like it. And if I liked it, I'd pick up the title. And you know what? It was good writing. It just wasn't my bag.
I picked it up, haven't gotten to it yet, but I'm not really impressed with the artwork. The artwork isn't really resonating with me, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to like the story. I just haven't had time to vest into it. My initiative has been all in, all DC.
Well, I'm saying that Jeremy Adams, if you're all in on DC, you're reading some of Jeremy Adams, so you know exactly how good his writing is. He knows how to have a good time. So what was your number 3 of 2024?
So my number 3 was actually one that I recall you saying wasn't even on your radar. And to be frank, it's not in my typical genre of comic books, but I did it for a cover buy, and I'm so glad I did, because this story is all heart. And that is The Autumn Kingdom. I am all in on this, and this is fantasy at its highest. So I don't do fantasy a lot because I have a really difficult time with world building, and I have an even worse time with the character names. I get so hung up on being able to properly pronounce the characters that sometimes it just takes me out of the story, you know. But I fought my own demons on this one, and I said, you know what, this one's got heart. So we follow a family at first. Dad is a writer. Mom doesn't really specify, you know, what her day job is, but she's a lovable character right from the start. And then we have two sisters. We have Summer and we have Winter. Of course, they can be pronounced as Summer if that's how you want to take it. Play off all the seasons. I'm just waiting for spring to hit, to be honest.
Well, then you should be reading. You can pick up the seasons #1 by Rick Remender.
Oh yes, there you go.
I
But
love that book already.
this is very female driven. We kind of have this look back, and it kind of ties into the dad who's a writer. He gives Summer a book, and she's sitting in the back seat and she's reading it. They're going on what is going to be a writing retreat for the dad, and he's just trying to get his, you know, juices flowing again and try to figure out how to end this story. But the pieces that she's picking out of this story kind of just instantly happen once they get to this cabin. So Winter takes off into the woods. Summer kind of follows behind her, and they go on this adventure. Mom says, stay on the path, but whoever listens to their parents when it comes to the woods? So they end up by these what appear to be ancient ruins. They're these big statues, and it just instantly mimics the story that she's reading that her dad's writing. So just that subtleity of that transition, you know, and you're automatically sucked in because you're like, is her dad, you know, clairvoyant? Is he, you know, kind of pulling from the past and he's writing it in a future tense? Is there a piece of this historical mission that's missing and we're going to see it unfold? So I think for me as a reader, that's exactly what sucked me in. I mean, like I said, the family instantly lovable. Immediately though, and I don't really feel like I'm giving a spoiler away here. In this quest, things go crazy fast, and the parents get kidnapped by these ancient ruins, and the girls are now on a recovery mission. They need to find out, are their parents okay? Are they still alive? They start talking to some locals, and the locals are saying, oh, well, your parents have been kidnapped for a very specific reason. We need their blood to survive. It's like,
Yeah.
what? Oh, it's just, it's epic. I mean, you can't put it down, and I hate the term unput downable, but I really feel like this series for
It's a
me
real
is
term. I think he just invented it.
no, it is a thing. It
Okay.
does, you'll see it happen in the book community a lot. You know, people will reference an unput downable to kind of an unknown author, I guess, just to suck you in. But I really feel like this is unput downable. I think that once you get to the end of the story arc, and that's your first 4 issues here, you're going to be anticipating, where are we going? Because it leaves you on a cliffhanger. You kind of want to know, okay, we've got, you know, we've got some advancement in our mission here, but it's not complete. So what's going to happen? I mean, I'm very vested in this family. I'm very vested to see how this is going to continue on. I think it's very it's not perfectly written, because, you know, I do feel like there are some rough edges for me, but I think that's me personally, because like I said, I'm not a go-to fantasy person. So for me, just that whole world building, that ancient kind of style of writing and the wordsmithing and stuff is difficult for me. But if you can power through that and you can get to the heart of this, which is truly the sisters and their mission and how they work together, but there is kind of an underlying, are they going to continue to work together kind of feeling, you know? So you're here for the good and the bad of it, and I really just feel like it pulls at all your heartstrings. It's an incredible adventure, and I'm just excited to continue on that journey.
Okay, I need to say a couple of things. First of all, I'm so glad that this book was in your top 3, because this book was a very, very good read. It was in my top 10. This was one of those situations where, oh, I wish these other books did not come out, because this would have definitely been ranked higher for me. I am very upset that it was only 4 issues. I'm really hoping that Ani Press will give Cullen Bunn the opportunity to write more. That's also the main reason why I picked this book up, because Cullen Bunn is a writer that I know well. I first read his work in a great Boom Studios maxi series. I believe it was 18 issues, maybe a little less, but it was called Basilisk. And I loved that book so much. And I knew that Cullen Bunn was very much a horror writer. One of the other titles that I picked up last year was a Dark Horse title that I wanted it to be better, but I still enjoyed it. And that was Monsters Are My Business and Business is Bloody. I mean, chainsaw wielding koala bear named Cuddles, how could you lose?
You have to admit though that artwork is really fun.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not going to knock that, but when Cullen Bunn decides to go out of his comfort zone and start to write a dark fantasy that to me gave me massive Pan's Labyrinth vibes in all the right ways, I said I want to check this book out. Our newest part-time member, Teddy, read that book too, and he freaking loved it as well. It's a great read. I'm so glad to see it here, and I'm so glad to know that Cullen Bunn not only did this, but is now working with an ongoing series over at Mad Cave Studios, going back to the nostalgia buzz, which ties into my part 3. So this sort of like connects us in a way. He's now doing an ongoing series of the classic anime Gatchaman from 1972 from Tatsunoko. And as someone who has never watched the anime but knows how iconic that show was, I am having such an amazing time with Cullen Bunn's writing of Gatchaman. It is fantastic. But the Autumn Kingdom is also fantastic. So I'm so glad that we got a chance to mention that. And also a fun fact, that is the very first set of floppies that I have ever purchased from Ani Press. I have all the Brian O'Malley Scott Pilgrim books, but that's the only Ani Press stuff that I have. And I'm also very glad that I will be picking up another Ani Press book this March, but I won't talk about it just yet because it's sort of going to spoil a little bit further on our discussion down the line. But Cami, so glad you threw out there. I'm so glad you picked Autumn Kingdom. That's a book that we need to talk about on this channel because I want more people to read it. So bravo for you.
And thanks for recovering me on the publisher and the author. I always fail to do that. I get so excited about the story. I always forget the meat and potatoes up front.
Well, that's the thing. Cullen Bunn, for me, you know, I want to read more of his science fiction and fantasy, and I hope he does that a little bit more because for me, his horror can be hit or miss. But Autumn Kingdom, I freaking loved it. Gatchaman is fantastic. I want to read more of his work in those genres, and I have a feeling we may see more. Like I said, I really hope there's going to be a second story arc because this was too little. I need more of Autumn Kingdom.
I have a lot of Ani Press titles actually because they do a lot in the horror genre, so I'm always picking them up.
So my number 2, I'm sure you know what it is, but I'm sure that you're going to be even more happy with the comic that I'm going to show because of a little something I remember from a couple of videos ago where you said, and I quote, "That movie scared the hell out of me." So I knew that this book was going to be in my top 3 only because of the writer and the artist and the title that they wrote before. Cami, I'm sure you've already figured out what I'm talking about. So of course, I'm talking about Tony Fleecs and Trish Fossner's Feral, but I'm going to feature the issue number 3 variant cover because this movie scares Cami so much.
It scared me
but at the same time, this is my favorite variant cover that they've done so far.
Oh, mine too, hands down. I think that cover is absolutely beautiful, and that freaking movie scared the crap out of me. I didn't think AI had the potential to scare me until that movie, and it sat with me in all the most eerie ways. But it was good because it kind of set me up for now, kind of what we're dealing with on the outside. It just shows you what AI is capable of. But let's talk about Feral.
Yeah, so obviously I knew, being such a fan of Stray Dogs, being such a fan of Tony Fleecs, Trish Fossner, and I also want to mention, we have to mention the inker, Tone Rodriguez. What a great job that he did with Stray Dogs. And we raved about Stray Dogs when it came out. I believe that was even my number 1 the year that it came out in 2021. But when I found out that Feral was coming, I got so excited. I was excited for another miniseries from this team. But then I had one of the greatest opportunities in 2024. I got to meet them because they did a signing at my comic book store. And that was also when I found out that Feral was going to be an ongoing series. And I was saying, how are they going to pull this off? Because Stray Dogs, I would have loved more Stray Dogs, but it ended so beautifully.
It did.
We didn't need Dog Days, but still, we got them because we loved
Yeah.
it. But I was expecting nothing less than genius from this team with Feral. And when I got a chance to see them and have them sign some of my books, they are hoping that this book will go 50 issues at most.
I think it has potential to go that far because apocalyptic settings, virus settings definitely do, but you have to be very careful with it. I mean, if The Walking Dead taught us nothing, at some point, enough is enough. It just kind of gets bland and boring. So I have full confidence in that writing team, though. I do think that they are going to keep us very captivated in the story. And I think what's so wonderful about that writing team and what they put together is they really find the heart of their characters. And you really just want to come back for them. You want to know, are they okay? Did they survive? Are what is their next buddy system going to look like? There's so many things that happen within those stories that you latch onto, and even though they're short, little reads, you really just become encapsulated in these cats' lives, and you want to go on their adventure with them.
Yeah, and I'm just going to say now that we're officially wrapping up the second story arc, I believe this coming week is issue number 10. I'm still going to say that they're going strong. I mean, I loved the first story arc, but my God, the second story arc blew my mind. And I'm so excited for what they have in store for arc number 3. It's been phenomenal. It's been such a good ride. It's been a heartbreaking ordeal. Some issues have been just so emotionally captivating. But again, I am very happy that they do these horror-themed B-movie variant covers. I'm always curious to know which horror movies they're going to do. And like I said, when issue number 3 came out and I saw the Megan parody, I was like, oh my God, I haven't seen Megan yet. But now that I've seen the trailer for Megan 2.0, now I really want to see the movie. But I'm just like, this is so perfect. This cover, chef's kiss. And much like that, like David Pepos, who writes Space Ghost, I love the fact that they're so approachable. I actually communicate with them on X from time to time because every single time they show a new issue and they show a new variant cover and I don't know what the movie is, I literally send the poster out and I tweet to them and said, guys, which movie is this, please? I need help. And they
make me feel inadequate as a horror movie watcher, though, because sometimes I feel so out of the game because you'll send me something, I'm like, oh crap, I'm stumped. I don't know what that is,
And I've never heard of some of these horror movies. I've never heard of Faye. I've never heard of Pearl.
I can't feel too bad because, well, I have heard of Pearl, but I don't really say that I got too vested in horror from about 2010 to, I mean, even now, as far as those very cliche movies, because we got really deep into jump scares and we got, I don't know, we just kind of got, in my opinion, half-hearted, B-style kind of horror movies. So I really jumped out of the game, and I'm very much a vintage horror movie watcher, but every now and then one will captivate me. Megan just had me, from the jump, because there's just something creepy about her, just absolutely eerie. So I'm looking forward to continuing on with that, and hopefully 2.0 won't disappoint, but I really don't think it will. Neither will Feral.
I'm just looking forward to the next issue of Feral because I believe that the variant cover is actually a Fangoria magazine parody cover.
I love that. That's so dope. Oh my God. I got so excited when I saw that cover. I was like, oh my God, that cover is everything.
Yeah, I hope that they do a little bit more, and I wonder if they'll go outside the box and maybe do like when they went over the top with all the ones in Stray Dogs, like the Goosebumps book covers and the parodies of different comic covers. I'm like, oh man, if they wanted to actually do like a Feral parody of an Ice Cream Man cover, I'm all here for it.
Well, there's definitely lots of possibilities if 50 is the number,
I like to see how far they can go, but all I can say is that there's a lot more of a story to tell because I am still very much invested in Feral. And I'm also very much invested because now Tony Fleeks, whenever I see his name attached to a comic book now, I am not going to hesitate to pick it up. I'm reading his book Uncanny Valley over at Boom Studios, which was also another one of my books that was in my top 10 of 2024. If it wasn't for some of these books like Feral, it would have been higher. And I have to be honest, when I found out that they announced that he was going to be writing a 5-issue miniseries on The Thing over at Marvel Comics, I'm like, I may not like what Marvel's doing right now, but Tony Fleecs is writing a Marvel comic. I want to see how he writes a Marvel character.
I'm glad he's getting all this limelight, because it's nice to see when a writer does very well and then they're able to kind of just be multifaceted amongst publishers like that. It really just gets their name out there and they become a household signature name. So good for him, and I'm excited.
Also say, meeting him and Trish in person, they really are two of the nicest people, because what I really like to do when I go to a comic book signing, I like to try and provide a piece of their work that I anticipate not many people bringing to have them sign. So I actually bought with me, I had to buy a book at the store to get signed, and then I was able to bring whatever else I wanted. So I brought my Stray Dogs Free Comic Book Day book. And when I brought it over at Tony Fleecs, he goes, "Oh my God, I haven't seen this one in a while." So the fact that I sort of give them a little bit of a compliment, like they like the fact that I bring those far-fetched things. It shows that I am a fan of your work. And that's what I really want to do. I want to appreciate you and tell you that I am really a fan of your work. Here's a cover you probably haven't seen in a bit.
That's cool. Well, you're very lucky to have met them, and unfortunately, living in a rural area, I don't get those opportunities. But in a big city like that, you get tons of opportunities. I don't live in a big city, Tammy. Well, you live closer to comic book stores.
North?
Hey, brick and mortar. If I live 40 miles north of a comic book brick and mortar, I would definitely ham that up, because my comic book store is very small, and I have to wait just sometimes for my titles to come in. I'm in a very rural area.
Okay.
So moving on to my number 2 selection. Mine actually is going to hail from Image Comics and an author that you talk about quite a lot, Mr. Peter Tomasi. And this is one that you had talked about, but one that my comic book store owner put on my radar, because she just ordered it for me and said, "I think this is right up your alley," and I'm so glad she did. This breaks your rule, though, because there was only 2 issues that were released in 24, and we're going to obviously continue on with 25.
No.
And that's Hornsby and Halo. This is so freaking good, guys. If it's not on your list, you better go pick it up right now, because we just got issue number 3 just this past week. And I'm telling you, I am already in love with Rose and Zach. So anything that deals with heaven and hell, it's already a win for me. But this take is different, because I don't feel like it's biblical in that sense. When you deal with heaven and hell, you already know, especially in the world of horror, there's going to be a battle of evil. Here you have a very unique take with 2 13-year-olds that were cast out of heaven and hell, and it almost feels like this episodic kind of gods, not a god, when you're dealing with this, because you see that celestial view. They obviously have a lot of help on Earth as they're trying to kind of learn who they are, but also what their place is on Earth. So you have Rose, who is 13, and she was cast from hell, and the upset of this just cute buttonly little girl who has this adorable dog, and she doesn't look evil at all. And then you have Zach, who was cast down from heaven, who is an archangel, and you see his ability to do good. But the uniqueness of this story is they were given to families who could not conceive a child, which I think is so cool, and then given the opposite type of family. So you have this you're pulling from so many different facets. I just cannot speak highly enough of this series. And like I said, we're only 3 issues in, 2 of which came out last year. I think this has potential for greatness, and I do hope we carry on with this, because I'm in love with these characters, and I haven't said that so early in a series. That, Steve, is why I said it was okay for me to have picked it when only 2 issues came out, because it's a hit. It's so good.
I will say that I'm so glad that you brought this one up, because that's Ghost Machine. And I've been saying that 2025, it's going to be, for the top spot, it's going to be the Ghost Machine universe versus the Energon universe over at Image Comics. It's going to be Robert Kirkman versus Jeff Johns, butting heads for the love of comic readers. Ghost Machine is a universe that is, as far as I'm concerned, near perfect. If anything,
Yes.
absolutely perfect. I am reading every single Ghost Machine title, and every single one is that damn good. Right now, Hornsby and Halo is my #1 top pick for 2025 right now, because
It's so good.
I think what's so interesting is I didn't even expect this one to be my favorite one. I mean, right below it is another one, is Hyde Street. I am
Oh,
just
Hyde
blown.
Street. Yes, that's a
I'm just
top
blown
contender for me
away
right now
by.
too.
I mean, again, Peter Tomasi is a great writer, another comic writer who I actually had the pleasure of meeting and getting some books signed. He comes to this store all the time. He's like a good friend to the guys, so he's always willing to come by. But I love the fact that Jeff Johns, even though he's doing most of the writing over at Ghost Machine, the fact that he actually got Peter Tomasi to join him to write the Family Odysseys books over at Ghost Machine, because I want to mention, since we're talking about him, Hornsby and Halo is great, but so is the Rockefellers over there by Peter Tomasi. That's a great book too.
I'm gonna have
And
to hunt that one down because you've been talking to me about that and I haven't seen it on the shelves, so I need to order it.
yeah, but I love the fact that you mentioned the interesting thing about how these two, this angel and this devil, are put in the exact opposite situations. To me, it felt like heaven and hell are like at the roulette table, and they're like
Yes.
gambling. Like they're saying, like, is this going to bring the downfall of humanity, or is this going to ignite a gigantic war between heaven and hell? And what's so interesting is, I don't know about you, but I get massive superhero vibes from these kids. They don't know what they are, and they don't know if they don't know if they're doing good or if they're doing bad, because every single time they transform, their brains end up in a fog when they wake up. There's so much mystery in this story, but at the same time, I'm also like wondering, is, Zach knows all the secrets from his parents. Is he going to take him down? What's going to cause Rose to go off the deep end? I love
Yes.
this story. It is
Well,
so much fun.
the beauty of this too is we start off with our two main characters at the young age of 13, so there's so much potential for growth. If they don't do a huge age progression really quickly, this stands to last the tale of time. So if the sales are there for this, I mean, potentially we could see this being a massive series. It's that good. The writing is just really phenomenal. The artistry is gorgeous. The coloring is gorgeous. There's so much contrast of the fire and the ice kind of, so it pairs well, but it's such a good pairing that you are even more immersed in the story because you're reading the dialogue, it's going so quickly, and then you have to kind of go back and just take in all the scenes. It's action packed, it's fun, and all of our intro characters that come in to support both Rose and Zach are also really intriguing and interesting. It's like there hasn't been a side character yet that I'm like, that's crap. And then we have a few that are kind of in the wait that we're like, okay, what's your overall purpose? Because you seem to know a little bit more about these two. And, so the bus driver is definitely on my list.
No,
But
and
yeah,
you're absolutely
it's a
right.
great series.
That's right. One of the few things that I definitely want to make sure that we do whenever we're talking about a Ghost Machine title, we not only have to credit the writer, we have to credit the artist. Peter Schneeber is so wonderful. His artwork is so bright and colorful and fluid. It's poetry in motion whenever I read that book. And the same can be said with any of the other Ghost Machine titles out there. But that's because of the fact that Jeff Johns is trying to do what Image Comics did as a whole back in 1991. He's trying to create a revolution here. He brings Peter Tomasi, and I'm pretty sure he's going to try and get more great writers, but he's got a slew of great artists, and that's one of the few things. I was talking to one of our colleagues, I was talking to Andy the other day, talking about how Jeff Johns is writing a large chunk of the Ghost Machine titles, and how is it that he's actually managing? Well, I also think his biggest strategy is the fact that there's a different artist on every book, and it's not one artist for everything. So, like, he's got Peter Schneeber doing the artwork for Hornsby and Halo, and even though Peter Tomasi is writing it and also writing the Rockefellers, he's got Francis Manapul doing the work on the Rockefellers. And even though Jeff Johns is writing eventually, I don't know, I think there might be 2 more titles coming, so that's going to bring a total of 6. he's got a different artist on each one of those books. So the artists are not getting burnt out. They're all just focusing on one title and not five. And I think that that's the reason why the books are doing so well. And I think that's also the reason why the books are actually managing to get out there on time, because it's much easier to write the book, especially if you got a good story in mind, than it is to draw the book. But no, Cami, let me just say again, a winner. The fact that you gave us the opportunity to talk about the Ghost Machine universe. I was planning on doing that myself a little bit later, but just the other day I was watching a YouTube video in the comic book community talking, they were saying, why is nobody talking about the Ghost Machine universe? So many more people need to talk about the Ghost Machine universe.
Stay tuned, watchers, because we're going to do it this year.
We got the first episode of Ghost Machine Ultimate Journey coming in a week. I'm going to be sitting down with Teddy and going over the very first Ghost Machine title, even though it wasn't Ghost Machine at the time. It's still Ghost Machine now. But no, I cannot disagree. Hornsby and Halo is phenomenally good.
So
phenomenally good.
It really did surprise me, but I mean, I was sucked in after the first issue. I don't even think I finished the first issue before I was like, I need more. I need so much more.
That's exactly how I felt. When I put the first issue down, I was like, wow, this is so much better than I thought it was going to be. But that's the other thing. It's just because I got so excited about the Ghost Machine universe, I want to give every title a try. I swear to you, I am saying to when I started reading the Ghost Machine universe, because, you know, we spent a lot of money reading all these books. I was saying to myself, I'm wondering if I'm actually going to stick to each and every one of these titles. The answer right now is fuck yeah, because they're just so good. They're really great.
Yeah, that one definitely took me by surprise, but I'm so happy it's on my radar and it's in my reading list now.
So before we get into our number ones, I want to throw out a couple of honorable mentions. So the best way for me to do my honorable mentions is I'm going to give you the ones that rounded out my top five. So my number 5 book of 2024, and like I said, if it wasn't for some of the titles that I just mentioned earlier, this could have been my number 1. It's a Ghost Machine title, believe it or not, and it's Rook Exodus. Rook Exodus by Jeff Johns and Jason Fabok. This book is so good. When the first few titles of Ghost Machine came out, it was Geiger, Redcoat, and Rook Exodus. I thought that this was going to be the title that I was not going to like the most. This is my favorite one.
Oh, cool.
This is my favorite one that is not part of the Family Odysseys. It's like, it really is right now when it comes to Ghost Machine, Cami, it is really like trying to pick between your children, because it's my favorite book, Rook Exodus. Is my favorite book, The Rockefellers. Is my favorite book, Hornsby and Halo. It's like, my favorite Ghost Machine book is a different book with every issue, but that makes me so happy. But the thing about Rook Exodus was it started out a little bit slow because it was a little bit of world building that was involved. But it was very hard to dislike this book because Jason Fabok's art is top-notch. Another great artist attached. The fact that Jeff Johns grabbed all these guys and said, don't even bother working with DC and Marvel. Come and work with me. I'll give you guys some good work. And these are all original characters. This whole universe is just opening up right in front of our eyes. And it's so new and so young. It's so easy to get in on this. Like Teddy, who is literally new to comics, he's feeling comfortable to talk about the Ghost Machine universe because it's new and we're all growing with it as new readers reading new books. By the time I got to issue number 6, I was like, wow, this book is incredibly good. Unfortunately, the book's on hiatus. I have no idea when issue number 7 is coming, but I know it's coming and we're all waiting for it. So I know you're reading your share of Ghost Machine titles, Cami. If you're not reading Rook Exodus yet, this is one you should.
I might pick that up. Yeah, that wasn't on my radar, and I honestly didn't even know that one existed. So yeah, I'll definitely look into it.
It's weird because some people say it has a little bit of a Dungeons and Dragons vibe because it's all about, it's far in the future, the human race colonized another planet, the technology has failed, and everybody's trying to escape, and some people are stranded. and there are some people that are given these helmets to wear that helps them communicate with a various animal species. So our character Rook has the power to communicate with crows, but there's one that communicates with boars, there's one that communicates with turtles, there's one that communicates with grasshoppers. It's such a bizarre but fun futuristic world, and yet it feels primitive at the same time. As animal instincts is a major plot device in this story, but it's good. You're left on the edge of your seat every single time.
That's cool. Yeah, I'll definitely put it on my radar. Put it on my comic books store radar. That way she can pull it for me.
And then there was my other honorable mention. It's my number 4, and this is another one of those nostalgic books. Now, I bought this book because I love the character. I love everything that I know about this character. And just so everybody knows, this is going to be the first book that we discuss in our flashback series, especially because of the fact that we are celebrating a major anniversary of the 1990 film, Mad Cave's Dick Tracy. I did not expect this book to be as good as it is. This is not campy. This is true crime detective story, but you feel that nostalgic buzz because you see Dick Tracy and Flat Top and Prune Face and Lips Manless. Like, these are all the overblown, crazy makeup done characters from that 1990 Warren Beatty film. And the first story arc was incredibly good. And unfortunately, my store still hasn't gotten issue number 7. Like, they're backlogged.
Oh,
But
issue number 7.
no, I don't. I haven't read it yet, and I'm really angry.
I got it.
Oh, so does Teddy. I'm so upset that I haven't read it yet. But I love this book. I love this book, and Cami, I cannot wait to discuss the first story arc in the coming weeks.
I'm excited about it. It's a gritty story. It's dark in all the right places, and I've been a fan of Dick Tracy for multiple generations. I just I love the 60s cartoon. I love the 90s film, and so that comic book was bound to capture my heart, and it's doing all the right things. So I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah. So do you have any honorable mentions?
I have 2 actually. One's a little bit more lighthearted, one's a little predictable for me. So I'll start with the lighthearted one that kind of took me by surprise, and this is an Image Comics. This is loosely based, to my understanding, on the series Dragons Rising, and I am talking about the interesting, I guess in a way, the take on animation to comic books, because if that's what we're doing here, this works. And I picked it up simply because I'm a huge fan of Lego, and that is the Shatterspin Ninjago series. This is hilarious. Oh my god, I don't think I've laughed this hard out loud in a while. This is so much fun. Honestly, I have not seen the show, so I can't do the comparisons, but they do say that there's a lot of Easter eggs in the series. But we follow a kind of a lord, and he goes through getting kicked out of the inner circle by his sensei, and he's basically sent on a mission. There's a Ninjago war that's about to start, but he's given this talon and kind of thrust into a journey to find these 5 sources, and he comes across a completely different world, and the cast of characters is hilarious. I mean, you are going to fall in love with the 5 that he initially comes across. You are going to just you're going to embody yourself in his journey. It's fun, it's humorous, and it's all the things that you would want from Lego animation in a comic book. So if you have some spare time and some spare cash, I definitely say pick up this Splatter Spin series from Lego Ninjago.
You see, it wasn't going to be a complete video if you weren't going to throw out just some 100% cutesy Saturday morning cartoon stuff. It wasn't going to work if the video was not going to work at all.
I had so many to choose from, to be honest. I mean, that's just me. I always kind of pick these kiddish type titles. This again is through Image Comics. It's written by Trivong, and the ink is done by Ricardo Rebaldo, and it's fun. It honestly, it's one of those things that you if you blinked, you would have missed it. But when you have it in your possession, you're like, I'm so glad I have this. This is great. And then this one is kind of just a nod to you know, who I am and the legacy that I carry. And this was the bind up of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 40th anniversary. Um,
Oh,
this was really good because this took us back to the beginning and to the mod. I mean, we have the early participation of the inking by Eastman and Laird, obviously through the Mirage, but we get a story from just about every generation of turtles.
oh
So
wow.
regardless of where you stepped in, it's not just artwork. You get an actual full-blown story. So if
Great.
you're interested in kind of like what did the Mirage stories look like, or you know, where was I in 2010 in the Turtle universe? I mean, there's something for everybody in this. It's in a hardcover bind up. You can purchase this, you know, just by asking your local comic book store owner to pull it in. You can get it off Eastman's website also. But this is a must for any turtle fan because it's just so well put together.
And once again, it would not have been a best of 2024 with Cammy if she didn't throw out something Ninja Turtles. It's just impossible. It's impossible.
I try to
Impossible.
steer away from it. I do, but they
Every
suck
time
me
you
in.
think you're out, they pull you back in. But no,
Right?
that's a complete and utter lie. Because if she ever had to get out of it, she would be getting out of it kicking and screaming.
So true, so true. But those are my
Okay.
two honorable mentions, and you know, some fun, definitely some nostalgia nods. I'm a huge fan of the Turtles, and so if they can find their way into my reading, they will always find a way.
All right. So my number one read of 2024, Cammy, you know what it is.
I do, I do, I
Want to
do.
say it? You want to just say it to everybody?
Beneath the trees where nobody sees.
Bingo.
Bing, bing, bing,
What
bing.
else would it be? What else would it be? And also, have you noticed what I'm holding here?
I do. When did you get that?
I am holding the trade,
When
and
did you
I'm
get
holding
that?
I bought it on Amazon.
Oh, cool.
And I have the trade because of the
Because he
fact
reads
that I
it so
found
damn
out
much.
it's because it's not just that, it's because I found out how valuable the original 6 floppies are. So those are now double bagged and double boarded and will never see the light of day for the rest of my life until I have to sell them. If that day ever came, I hope that isn't the case. But yes, my number one read, everybody knows this. We just did a whole discussion video, Cammy and I, about this book.
So good.
It's from IDW, Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees, by an unknown, now very much recognized in the world of comics, Patrick Horvath. Very excited for the fact that he's got some more projects in the works. He's got a one-shot comic from Ani Press coming at the end of March, which I am excited to read. And more importantly, God willing, IDW sticks around because unfortunately, due to what happened with Diamond Distributors, people are thinking that IDW is going to go out of business. And it will be a darn shame because Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees is getting a very much anticipated sequel called The Rite of Spring. Patrick Horvath is going to be back on the writing and the penciling, which is great. And I believe that they're going to have the same inker as well. But listen, I've already ranted and raved about Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees.
So
It was a book that I almost never picked up, but because of the fact that, yes, what you're seeing right now, this is the A cover of the first issue. Because of the fact that I saw that cover, even though I was a month late to the party, that cover just intrigued me. And just constantly going back to it and reading the blurb, and it kept saying Dexter meets Richard Scarry's Busy Town. I'm like, I have to pick this book up. I'm so glad I did because it is an incredible, incredible story. And I'm also seeing that there are some people in the booktube community who have read graphic novels. There was recently a video, a booktuber just talked about this book. So I'm glad to see that some people are reading it. I want to see more people read this book. I hate the fact that the big names in comic book discussions on YouTube talk about the downfall of IDW, and yet none of them have picked up this title. They don't understand how that this exists, that Patrick Horvath is a great writer, even though he had very humble beginnings in the comic book industry. Again, It is in his bio. He tried to make it big in Hollywood as a screenwriter, and he didn't make the cut. Things that he
That's
did
why you
manage
got
to
to
get
get in
out.
those comic boxes of all those people talking smack about IDW and be like, no, have you read Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees? Because
See,
that's everything.
you see,
But
that's
that's what
the
I mean
thing.
about people not reading outside of their comfort zone. Sometimes people just want to jump on that bandwagon and they want to trash certain publishing companies or certain authors because of what other people are buzzing about without doing their own research. If people would get outside themselves for a minute and actually go walk around a comic book store or browse online, however you get your material, you'll find these incredible titles. And I'm so glad you put this one on my radar because I was a little off put actually by the artwork. I was like, come on, Steve, this looks super cheesy. But when you read it, you're like, oh my God, this is brilliant. There is just something so great about this. And I'm so glad I didn't miss it.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. It's just because, yes, the truth of the matter is IDW has not had the best leadership. And yes, the only thing that has pretty much kept them on life support is the Ninja Turtles, thanks to the Last Ronin just being the book that it was, allowing Saturday Morning Adventures to come out. But again, they just have started talking about IDW The Dark World, where they want to make more of this. They want to make a Twilight Zone comic. They want to bring 30 Days of Night back. So
Yes.
IDW guys, we don't want them to go away because we don't want Beneath the Trees to go away. We love this book. We are excited for the follow-up. I mean, look, worst case scenario, I'm pretty sure that some independent company who has read this book will save it. I'm sure of it. But I don't want Patrick Horvath to just be a flash in the pan, one time forgotten due to unfortunate circumstances, I want this creator to be known because if you're a horror fan, you will read a story that is just fresh and unique. It's like you said in our discussion, the little blurb of Simon Spurrier on the cover of the book, a bright, shiny, vile gem of a book. That's exactly what this story is. This had to be my number one. Also, you didn't mention what it said on the back. Home is where the heart stops. I like that.
Oh yeah. I did read that blurb. No, but I have seen this on a few people that read it regularly in the horror community. So it's really nice to see that people are picking up on that and reading. But moreover, it's really just nice to see that people are stepping outside of the novels and picking up graphic novels. Because most people will wait for the bind up in that regard because they're not comic book readers. But it's really nice to see that more people are starting to talk about this. Even if you're late to the game, it's never too late to read a good book.
Cammy, I'm pretty sure. I know you loved this.
I
I
did.
know you did.
Absolutely.
I'm
Absolutely.
certain because I got to be honest with you. When we were doing our discussion of this book, it didn't sound like this was your number one of 2024. I'm curious to know if you were to think about your top 5 or even your top 10, was that there?
Oh, absolutely. Top 5 for sure. I would probably rate it at about number 5, to be honest. And it's nothing more than I read horror all the time. I'm saturated in horror. And I think sometimes when you are overly genre specific, it's not that a story isn't unique. It's not that a story doesn't stick with you. It's not that in that case, it's not so riveting that it doesn't feel new. But I wasn't instantly taken with that. So I think
Got it.
that for me, it wasn't so much like a cover by or something that would have instantly connected me to that. But I mean, the story's phenomenal, the writing was phenomenal, and by the time you're invested in issue 2, you're all in. And
Yeah.
I really do hope we get continuation on that. I really think that there's promise for that. But yeah, easily in my top 5, but definitely not my number 1.
Got it. Got it. Thank you for letting me know. I was just curious. So what is your
Oh,
number one?
absolutely. So my number 1 is true Cami fashion because I'm all in my feels when it comes to certain titles. This was very much on my radar from the minute the buzz happened about it, and I really wanted it to be everything that I hoped that it would be, and it was so much more. And that is the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers: The Return.
Oh, I heard
This
so much about that book.
This is
Amy Jo
everything.
Johnson, she wrote it?
Amy Jo Johnson in collaboration with Matt Hodson. This is everything you want as a fan, and everything I think Amy Jo Johnson has always kind of kept in her heart. This is such a beautiful nod to Jason David Frank. There is a huge just legacy beauty to the fans of the series. This gives someone, I mean, even if you weren't there from the beginning when the show aired, if you came in somewhere in between and you love the Power Rangers for whatever reason, you can still walk away with something from this series. And that's what I loved about the writing. It's beautiful. I mean, I cannot express how beautifully this is written. And it's entertaining, it's action packed, and it gives the characters, I mean, Billy's there, Zach is there, Jason is there. We even see Tommy in the story. He has a beautiful part in the storyline. I'm not going to give away any kind of spoilers because I'm hoping you pick it up. I know it's not something that would normally be on your radar, but I think you might enjoy it. And if for anybody who hasn't read it, I definitely don't want to spoil because there's two major spoilers that I could potentially give away that drive the story. One happens in issue number 2 and the other happens at the issue of 3, and you kind of get that illusion from the jump. You are already like, is this gonna happen what I think is gonna happen? Is this where the story is alluding? And it doesn't disappoint though. Jason is rogue and he's the asshole everybody expects him to be. I'm sorry, but I have always felt that way about him. I just think he's a very arrogant actor, and ever since Jason David Frank left us, God rest his soul, he has just kind of really used his death as a way to kind of catapult his fame. And Zach isn't any much better, to be honest. I just feel like he's always kind of used the dynamic of, hey, well, we were the two that left the show together, whatever. She writes all of that beautifully in here. She still respects him because obviously they're still her friends. But I just love the way she wrote those two characters. It gave them the exact attitude that if you're a true fan, you would expect them to have. Billy is perfect in this. Tommy is perfect in this. The two major epic twists and turns are perfect. You're going to see all your cast of characters from the early days, and you're going to be wrapped right into what I'm hoping is going to be an awesome legacy with this new spinoff that we're getting with Jason David Frank's daughter as kind of reassembling the role of the Green Ranger. So we'll see what happens, but in the meantime, please pick this up, put this on your radar. I mean, it's amazing. It's absolutely gorgeous. Everything about it.
So I got a question, and thank you for talking about this because I completely forgot this book came out.
Oh, it's been on my radar since she started talking about it.
Well, that was what makes me curious. How do you feel about Amy Jo Johnson as a comic book writer, and do you think she has the potential to branch out and maybe write more comics that are not necessarily Power Rangers related, or do you feel that this was just a one and done for her to pay tribute to the legacy that is Power Rangers?
So Amy Jo Johnson at her heart is an artist. She's a musician. She's a true creator. She is everything that embodies the craft of the creation. I think that this was an absolute nod, and this was a way for her to kind of say goodbye to Jason. I think that there was so much residual that she was holding on to, and I think a lot of this for us fans that have been there tried and true since day one, we always wanted that ship to sail, not only on the show but in real life. They had this unbreakable bond, and in a way we kind of always wanted the Amy story with the happy ending, and he was in it, but it didn't happen that way. They obviously had very different lives, and but they were still the best of friends, and I think she pays tribute to that friendship, but the underlying love that she expresses for him in this is just unmatched. I mean, nobody loved him the way she did. But do I think that she is capable of writing? She's showcased it here, but I don't know that me as a fan would see her writing anything but in the world of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
Fair.
The reason I say that is because, her heart is there. Her vision is there. She knows exactly what it takes to carry that. And I know that we got the Netflix show, from David Yost, and that was great. But it wasn't complete. I mean, all of us saw it and we were like, without Jason David Frank, something was missing. It was very
Gotcha.
clear that it was just real fast, and kind of the ending was kind of altered because of his
Gotcha.
demise.
Gotcha.
I think what she did with this, though, just carried on that legacy and gave us kind of that finality that we were hoping for with that show, with that movie. Now, I'm not discrediting the fact that she can't write something else. I just don't know what that would be, I mean, as a fan of her, I idolized her as the Pink Ranger. I always wore both pink and yellow as a little kid, though. I just love them both equally. And Trini has a beautiful homage in this too, and you can definitely see that they had a beautiful friendship by the way she pays tribute to her in this. But I don't know what she would write other than, you know, um, I'm just kind of thinking back to all the videos that I've seen her do on social media and stuff like that. So I would think it would just have to be kind of in that realm of a very artsy, possibly musically driven. Maybe if she did something with some underlying musical, basis, that might be something interesting. But I think we all turned to this and supported her on the project because she had the heart, she had the vision, she had the soul of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and she gave us all the gift that we were hoping for. In a way, we kind of got to say goodbye to Jason David Frank in this series, and it was beautiful.
Thanks for that. I was very curious. I mean, I know that the thing about that book was that I remember when it was announced, I remember that there was so much hype around it, and then not many people talked about it. So weren't you and April supposed to do
Yes,
a bust you read about this?
yeah, we talked about it, and she was talking about waiting for the trade or something, I think, on it, but she had done some special ordering also, and I don't know if she ordered from Amy Jo's website, and she was waiting for that, but we never really got into a discussion because she had, some personal matters that came up, and so it just kind of went to the wayside, and I never visited it. But if she wants to talk about it, I mean, we can get
Yeah, I
deep
think
on
you
this
guys need to
because
talk about it.
I really feel like this is one of those series that it's a huge homage to the fans, and you could break down each individual issue and give it such clarity, and just really give the viewers something to want to grab onto.
I
So if
mean, look,
you fail to pick it
the
up,
two of you on this team are the biggest Power Ranger fans.
oh, hands down. Yeah. I mean, I've been an avid fan since 93. I even went to the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers live stage show. I mean, I'm all in this. I have a pennant on my wall that still hangs up to this day. I have every Funko Pop that's ever been made. I have every replica of the weapon that all have lights and sounds. I'm a huge Mighty Morphin Power Rangers fan, and it's a fandom I feel I don't even give enough oxygen to publicly. But at home, I mean, you talk to any of my friends and family, they'll tell you I'm a huge Power Ranger fan, and I was devastated when we lost Jason, and I'm still devastated. I'm still
Yeah,
heartbroken that he's not
the
with
way
us.
it's just not the way you want them to go. It's not. It's really
Absolutely
not.
not. I
Well, I
mean,
mean,
you
like
just
I was never. I mean, I remember being a really big fan when the show first came out. I even went to see the 1995 film in theaters.
oh, the movie
But
is so good, so good.
but after that, I just lost interest. But I will
Well, and
never.
mind you, yeah, they went through the gambit because they had the whole Bondi switch out, and there was a lot of legal stuff going on behind the doors. And really, that's why we had the exit of the Red Ranger and the Black Ranger, And I could go into all the schematics of that, but I do feel that at the heart of it, the legacy of the Power Rangers stayed throughout, regardless of whether you watched, any of the In Space or whatever your generation, your Power Rangers were in. There was
Up to
still the
now.
I don't even know what it is
Yeah,
now,
I don't even know what
but
they're up to.
but the
Because I don't
beauty
know,
of
like,
it is,
what are they like? Galaxy Rangers, Dino Squad. There's like so many
well,
different kinds.
Dino has made its resurgence a couple of times in the Power Rangers legacy. But what the beauty of that whole basis is they always bring back a familiar face. So regardless if you're totally vested in that season of Power Rangers, there is still one ranger that you know from a generation that you love that will surface, and it'll be like, oh, okay, cool. And they always have a really cool, powerful role, even if it's for a couple episodes, and maybe they might carry it. And I think that's why it was so devastating to lose Jason David Frank, because he made it a point to always remember where he came from, what gave him his claim to fame. And he was, a true martial artist from his roots, and he never forgot to come back and show gratitude for the show that made him a household name. And he carried so many seasons of the Power Rangers just by his presence. And he's a true artist, he's a true martial artist, and he's sorely missed by all his fans.
So
And
one of
I
the
just purchased the Loungefly limited edition backpack that is a homage to Jason David Frank, and I cannot wait to get it in the mail. It's beautiful, it's green, it's all things Tommy. It's beautiful.
well, I definitely noticed a very important reoccurring theme as we've gone through our favorite books of 2024. We're definitely paving the way for what is yet to come this year, because we discussed a lot about the nostalgic characters from the old television shows that we loved. We talked about the Ghost Machine universe, and even though we didn't necessarily focus on the Energon universe, but I am not going to lie, there definitely was some Energon enjoyment this entire year of 2024. I mean, Void Rivals, Transformers, and the new G.I. Joe title, all wonderful. And I can't wait to read more of that.
Yes.
But the long and the short of it is, we definitely are seeing a brand new age of comic books, and it's solely in the hands of the indie companies. I think Image is going to lead this new age. And even though there is a lot of negativity out there right now, and how everybody believes that the age of the Western comic book is over, I mean, the long and the short of it is, to a certain degree, I can understand if you're feeling that way, but that's only because of the fact that you're reading way too much DC and Marvel, and you're not expanding your horizons. You need
That's what I mean. I've been saying it this whole recording. Read outside of your comfort zone. Step outside the box of what you know, what you're accustomed to just going and pulling titles. I know DC has that lore of the all in, and we're all excited for Hush 2 coming in March. There's a lot of buzz around DC right now. And Marvel, like you said, it has a legacy that doesn't die. I don't understand it, but it does. The thing here is, though, is if you are going outside your comfort zone, you are going to find some of these gems that we've discussed tonight.
Yes, Image Comics was a predominant force in our discussion today. IDW, you mentioned Power Rangers, that was Boom Studios. It's all about the indie companies. Dynamite Entertainment, they're going to have a much stronger year this year because, not just Wacky Races and Silverhawks. I'm not going to get this book, but I hear so many people are excited about the Herculoids. And I know that there are other titles over there in the works. I heard that there is a possible Ben 10 comic book coming, Thundar the Barbarian title they're seriously thinking about putting together. I know Dynamite's got Speed Racer coming down the pike by David Pepose. I'm excited. And Mad Cave Studios is also going to go crazy. If I'm not mistaken, I believe it's Mad Cave Studios that is going to be giving us a Phantom comic book. And that's going to be something that I'm very excited. I cannot wait for Free Comic Book Day, because I'm going to pick up all of these awesome new titles and see what they're all about. And knowing that David, not only that, David Pepose is writing Captain Planet over at Dynamite. I cannot wait for Captain Planet.
I am so looking forward to that. I was a huge, huge fan of the cartoon as a kid, and I am so looking forward to what the comic series is going to bring us.
Yeah, I agree. So, guys, sit tight. There's some good stuff in the works, whether if you're excited for the next Ice Cream Man by The Scoop, or if you're excited for our new flashback series or more Ultimate Journeys. Trust me, guys, the buck stops here. We want new and old fans to come join us, and we want you guys to join us on this journey, because we want you guys to know where all the fun stuff is, because we're living in crazy times, whether you're with it or if you're terrified of it. All I'm saying is, if you need a way to distress and you need a way to truly forget about life for a while, and you're just sick and tired of going to see the latest Marvel movie, stop by here and see what we have to talk about, because I think you guys are going to find something that's going to give you a nice sigh of relief.
Absolutely.
All
Yeah,
right.
this was a good conversation, and I'm very much looking forward to this year. We have so much in the works.
So
It's
much
going
in
to
the
be a
works.
good year of reading.
It's going to be a good year, and even and God forbid it only ends up just being the two of us. The most important thing is that we'll just have so much fun talking about this stuff because we read some good stuff.
Absolutely. No, I think we'll get some of our colleagues in for specific things, but yeah, you're going to see our faces a lot.
Yes, so guys, please don't forget to leave a comment. Let us know what some of your favorite reads in 2024 were. Let us
Yes.
know if there's something that we missed, because chances
Yeah.
are we may not have mentioned it, but I can put money down saying we were probably thinking about them regardless, because we probably read them.
Yeah.
And don't forget to hit that notification bell, subscribe to the channel so you're always up to date with all of our latest content, and we will see you in the next one.
Bye.